We all have a, you know, we're all in the same position. It may look a little different depending on where we're standing or where we're sitting, but we all have the same position. And I really had to um, make sure that I myself this week had to, go back to, okay, we're all in, this same position. And there may be those who are out there who may do it a little different. There may be somebody out there who has a flyer that looks really nice. There may be somebody who has a little more reach than what you have. And that's understandable. That's okay. But we cannot focus on comparing ourselves, because what we were called to do is make an impact. What we were called to do is to be a voice. What we were called to do is be the hope. What we were called to do was to change the dynamic of what things looked like and what things were being done. And unfortunately, you have so many people that always get into the habit of they compare themselves, and then you think you need more than what you already have, and then you follow in, down this rabbit hole, and push comes to shove, you find yourself in a position to where you're uncomfortable, you're frustrated, you quit on your dreams, and then you go back to, man, look at what I lost. Look at what I lost. And unfortunately, we're in a society that's where they want the focus to be, is on what you lost, on what you don't have, on what's not in your house, what's not in your hands. And so I was looking, and this week was absolutely amazing. We did the World Voice Day Summit, and man, the response was amazing. We had to do some adjustments with tech, because things were like not going the way we wanted it to go at one point. We had some people that weren't feeling well 100%, and they had to come. They could not do it, and I mean, it was the same things that always goes on behind the scenes. Y'all know I'm good for being able to make an adjustment happen, right? No problems. Uh, but man, the response was amazing. And I was just, people were messaging me. I had people messaging me during the summit asking me, oh my goodness, how can I be connected to you? How can I get on your platform? I had people who messaged me after the summit. Oh my goodness, I didn't even realize you had a summit going on. I would love to stay connected so I can, see what else you have going on. Like literally, there are people that are joining the free Facebook group. There are people that are coming and following me. There are people that are coming and messaging me consistently. And it's interesting because in a time where people are like, um, oh, well, it's the same people showing up. It's the same people um, that's in, this program or that program. I tell people, be very cognizant about, if you are on a platform and the same people always are on the same platform, the same people are showing up at every conference. Why? Because what happens when there is no movement? When water does not move, there is stagnation, there's death. And so you should always be in a community that's growing and thriving, not one that's staying still. And be mindful about what you consider growing and thriving to really be. And so, in looking at what growing and thriving really is, it's, am I growing mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially? How am I growing? Because if I'm growing financially, that's great, but it means absolutely nothing if I'm not growing spiritually and mentally as well. Because what will happen is at some point my finances will outgrow the spiritual level that I'm on. It's like you handing $1,000 to a 3-year-old. That 3-year-old wants to go to the store. That 3-year-old wants to go spend about 300 of it on candy. That 3-year-old that they're not thinking investing the money. They're not thinking of buying something that will have some longevity to it. They're thinking, how do I find the joy right now? Let me buy something that's going to make me happy right now. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people are, is they have people that are going and saying, well, let's do this and let's do that. And it'll bring you some success right now. It'll bring you some joy right now. But we need to understand that there's going to be more that needs to be put in. I can't just go somewhere and get business coaching and think that I can get business coaching from anybody, because guess what? The seeds that are sown, it's very hard to dig up them roots once that starts to grow. The conversations that are had, whew, it's very hard to shift your own conversation and what you say after you've been hearing something for so long. And it was interesting. I was reading James this morning, and I was sitting there going, wow, when I was in a different environment, everything was, even though I had a heart of service, even though I had a heart of wanting to see people change and wanting to make an impact, my words were saying something completely different, because my words were going by what I was hearing on a consistent basis. And I remember, I think it was 2018, I did a session, and it was either 2018 or 2017. I said, and in the next year, I'm projected to make 6 figures. And like, it just came out in, how I was speaking. And in the environment I was in, it was not necessarily an environment where it needed to be said or where it was something that needed to be stated. But for whatever reason, as I was talking, that's literally what came out my mouth. And I think about it now, and I'm like, wow, that year I did not make 6 figures. I don't even remember what happened in that year. But I did not make the mark that I had set for myself. And I said, wow, there was such a feeling of defeat. And because I was not being fulfilled spiritually, emotionally, mentally, it was just the financial, this is what you put on paper and then move forward. You got to be very careful about what scriptures are being thrown out at you and all of those things. I'm like, no, I could have made that mark. But if I would have made that mark, was I in a position to be able to do the most with what was given to me? And I wouldn't have been. And it's a very hard truth to say and to tell, but I had everything on paper. I had everything written out. I had the strategy, had the plan, I had the profit plan and everything. But because of the environment I was in, it would have been gone in a moment's time. And I told my clients I told the team this. I said, even when I looked at my taxes that I did for this year and compared them to previous years, I wasted a lot of money. In previous years, I wasted a lot of money traveling to events where I wasn't getting a return on the investment that I was making to speak. I wasn't getting a return on the investment of the environment that I was in. And it was not an environment that was growing. It was one that was it would grow for a short amount of time, and then it would fall back to it just being um, the core people. And I started seeing the same thing happening in my own business and in my own following and my own connections. And I wasn't seeing any type of growth. I wasn't seeing any type of return. And it wasn't until I shifted and said, okay, let me get back to this foundation that I had. What, what's going on? I was looking at the cracks in my foundation and saying, well, let me go ahead and fix these cracks in my foundation. Let me go ahead and make sure that I'm standing spiritually, mentally, emotionally, that I'm doing better for myself, and thinking on a different from a different perspective. And it wasn't until that moment that I started seeing a shift. I started seeing people that I did not know, who knew of me and knew me, come to me and ask me for information, come to me and ask me to be a part of what they were doing. Me going and serving in some capacity, going and stretching the opportunities that were being awarded to me. It wasn't until I literally said, I have to look at this from a multi-dimensional angle at some point, because if I'm just focusing on the one thing, it's not going to work. And I wanted to share this morning because as we're shifting right where we are right now, there are governors and, mayors and people at, in authority who are making decisions for our country to be, our nation to be reopened, so to speak. And for some, that may mean going back to a job where you did not feel as comfortable as possible. Make sure your foundation is stable before going back. For some of you, that may mean that there is no job to go back to. For some, it may mean this is the moment where you're supposed to be launching something and doing something outside of the job. Whatever that may be, uh, I want you to go back and make sure that you have a solid foundation. It doesn't matter what happened last week. It doesn't matter what happened last year. It doesn't matter what happened before. Just make sure that you have that stable foundation, because that stable foundation is going to be what keeps you. And it's always going to be, easy for us to go back to what we feel comfortable doing, go back to what made us money, go back to, the words that somebody said and say, okay, yeah, that was good. That was good. Let me go ahead and just regurgitate what they said. But that's not what we were called to do. And it's only when we stand on a firm foundation that we can say, okay, I'm walking in the journey that was meant for me. I'm not trying to duplicate or replicate something else that somebody else is doing. Because I guarantee you, if you go ahead and walk in the journey that he has for you, he'll be there every step of the way. He's not going to leave you. He's going to be there every step of the way. And so the creative ideas, he's got you. The opportunities, he'll open them. And so there's a piece that is on the inside of me. So when I did the summit, I was just, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. We didn't do a flyer. We didn't do a landing page for attendees so we can collect emails. We didn't do any of those things. We just went live. And the messages that were shared by those who came on, I couldn't have set that up at all, because it was messages of hope, from overcoming cancer and kidney failure, to making sure that we're eating the right things and taking care of ourselves so we can have a healthy body and healthy hair, to Oh my goodness, are you taking care of yourself? To are you thanking our caregivers and those who are out on the front lines? Simplest things can help right now in this time. I mean, it was powerful, and the responses have been amazing. If I would have listened to anybody else, they would have said I needed a flyer, I needed a landing page, I need to collect emails, I need to do all of these different things. And it would have been focused on so many other things instead of being focused on the impact. When I think about the impact that we can make as World Voice League, when I think about the impact that we have been able to make as World Voice League, I'm excited. I'm excited. It's it's unlike any other feeling that you can have because it stretches far beyond what you can touch and see. So the work that you're doing is stretching far beyond what you can touch and see. The conversations you're having is stretching far beyond, and it's making an impact. It's making an impact. So did I miss any opportunities this week? No. Were things a little hectic this week? Yeah. But definitely made some adjustments and was able to accommodate what we needed to accommodate. And that's that's why we're here. It's uh, when I see people have opportunities and the growth, and I know Thea will talk about what she went through this week and what opened up for her. I'm like, man, just stay the course. Stay the course. Look at your foundation. Determine if there's any cracks, make sure that we're fixing the cracks in the foundation. And then one of the things that during my prayer time this week was, I didn't call you to be perfect. I called you to go. I didn't call you to be perfect. I called you to go. If you go in what it is that I have given you and told you to do, everything will work out. So that was my weekend review for you guys. I'm excited because this is only the beginning. I know. For some, you're like, it's the end of a job, it's the end of this, it's the end of that, it's the end of Corona. But in all actuality, it's a beginning. And it's a beginning for not just us, but our families, our children, relationships. It's a beginning for businesses. It's a beginning for um, so many. And it's going to take us to a whole nother level. So with that being said, I'm excited. Excited about your weekend reviews, and I want to hear what it is that you have accomplished this week.